What do you want to be remembered for here in Danville?
Wow. Danville's just been a great community to be a part of. It's probably it is the highest professional honor, privilege I've had as being the chief of police here in the city of Danville.
And this is your first chief of police job?
No, I was the chief of the DC Airports. The Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority was my first chief's job for 2 years. And I went and actually worked for a former chief of mine. He recruited me to that position, and transportation policing. So pretty large police department, but it wasn't policing a community as such. So it wasn't the same. This has been a true community experience.
And what do you think is your biggest achievement since you've been here?
So, I'm going to try to be very deliberate in my answers to this. I came to a community that would say in 2017, in 2016, at the height of violence, youth violence in our community, that community policing doesn't work here. They would openly say that that model is not something that we could use to build relationships, not something that we could use to gain trust and legitimacy in the community. And over the last 5.5 years together, we have proven them wrong, right? So in 2018, we came in and I worked with the department. I came in by myself. I didn't bring anybody with me. Everybody was here. They were homegrown. They were from this community, and they wanted change. The officers wanted to try some things different. The community demanded that we try some things different, and we built a model that was very community-based and about focused policing, all right, specifically in the areas and on violent offenders who were contributing to the violence here. We built models that brought in community members, comprehensive gang model, things like stratified policing. We built things, processes, uplifted people, promoted people to make our community better. And you know, we went from community policing doesn't work here to, as we sit in 2023, what I think is the model of community policing, certainly in Virginia, and you know, can be emulated in other parts and is emulated in other parts of the nation. So I'm very proud of that.
Have people learned from what you've done here?
Yes, yeah. So we do, you know, we were at Virginia Chiefs earlier this year in February, and we talked about our community policing model, the things that we've built. It's very well received. You know, we work at the National Gang Crime Research Center to talk about our successes, the National Gang Center to talk about a lot of our successes. So we've taken our local model and really kind of spread that to other parts of the nation. But at the end of the day, law enforcement, crime reduction is local, and everything, there are some commonalities that will work anywhere, right? So there's some things that have worked well for us in Danville that I'll certainly take to Roanoke, but Roanoke is a different community. So I have to go in with eyes wide open, make sure I really get a gauge for what the community wants, kind of what the department's doing currently that's great, and maybe we build some things that will work well there. Here was really creating from a bench line of community policing doesn't work, right? So we just had to kind of build on all of that. Roanoke already has a community policing model. You know, it's a citizen-centric department as per what they talk about on a regular basis. So we just have to look at making that model better.
Okay. Of course, you had skeptics when you first got here. What were the skeptics saying? So,
you know, everybody is, that won't work here, right? Well, community policing won't work here because people here are different. You know, they don't trust the police because of what happened in Bloody Monday, right, in 1963, which was a barrier that we had to get over. We offered a public apology in 2018. We were the first time the police department offered that for the first time in 57 years. There had never been a public acknowledgement of that event. That was very traumatic in our community, and that was a big step for us. And many times people will point to that as when our department truly started moving forward with a community policing model. Now, we had already done quite a few things up until that point, but there was an acknowledgement that was needed for our community to start accepting, you know, their police department. I do believe that. So skeptics then, skeptics now, right? A lot of times when they see how much community engagement we do, you know, we do things food giveaways, father-daughter dances a couple weeks ago when we bring folks into the community, into one community way to be a part of us and, you know, learn from us so we can learn from them, build, grow with us. There's still skeptics. There's still people that say, well, why aren't those police officers out there doing enforcement? Well, the truth is we can do both, and we do both. We have a great community engagement team, and we also have officers that are very focused on crime in our community. And that is why you have to do both to really get those results. And I think we've seen some pretty good results. I know we've seen some great results.
Yeah. What are you most proud of when it comes to those results?
So I'm a metrics person, so I love the fact that crime, specifically violent crime, has gone down so much in our community. I'm very proud of that. And even as a Richmond officer coming up, and certainly as a lieutenant and a captain, as a major there in Richmond, we were very crime-centric. We looked at crime numbers on a daily basis. So that's kind of how my mind is primed. So I get very, very proud when I see those numbers have gone down. But as important as it is to reduce crime in the community, the only way you get there is through relationships. So to see, once again, how we went from community policing doesn't work here in Danville circa 2017 to a community-based policing model where we have clearance rates that far exceed the national average because people are comfortable and will talk to us when an incident occurs. I'm most proud of that. All right, so the naysayers that said that stuff didn't work, well, what that stuff does, that stuff being relationships with the community, gets you to a point where your crime has been reduced, and your crime is reduced not only from focused policing, but from those relationships. People have to talk to you, right? If there's an incident, whether it's in Danville or Roanoke or Richmond or just anywhere, if there's a crime that occurs, they need to share information. And they're not going to share information if they don't feel comfortable, if they don't trust you, if they don't view the police department as legitimate. I think that is foundational in everything that we do.
Okay. Did you face people who were hard to win over?
I did. And, you know, I look back on it now, and I've been laughing with it. You know, you kind of reminisce as you get ready to make your exit. And it's been very hard for me, but, you know, I'll look back on some moments where early on people did not think that it would work. And our first community walk in Cardinal Village, I'd only been chief for probably a week or two. And that was an area that had really suffered from high levels of violent crime and low levels of trust with the police department. And we went out there with a number of officers and community leaders and knocked on doors and really interacted with people. And I had really seen a lot of resistance in those first 2 weeks, but once everybody got out there and kind of started connecting and engaging with people, I could see them starting to shift. Them being police officers, but and the community a little bit too, who were skeptical. So, you know, as we sat on some picnic tables after this like 2-hour experience, I could see that some minds and hearts were kind of going in the way that I wanted them to go, and then some, you know, maybe felt the same way. But those officers that felt the same way, many of them did leave. Many of them could retire and move on. And I'm not saying, well, change is always hard in an organization. And I had a great organization when I walked in the door, and have a great organization now. But change is hard. And the resistance was there. Usually what I see and what I've seen in my career, if you show people a better way of doing things, they're going to jump on board, right? If it's safe and if it's legal and moral, ethical, and you've got something that's working, they're going to jump on board with that. And that's what I saw here, right? So they saw that a community-based model where we're working on relationships while still being very focused on crime, specifically violent offenders. You have to have both. You don't do one without the other. And many times people want to believe it's a trade-off, right? So they see community engagement happening, and while those officers, they aren't doing their job, they're not out there arresting people, all right? Or they think it has to be one or the other. It has to be both. You have to do focused policing, but you have to work on building relationships. You can't have one without the other, at least not effectively.
Okay. Let's talk about staffing in Danville. Staffing is hard in every police department. How has staffing been in Danville while you've been here?
So we got to a better point, right? And then we got to a point that we're kind of suffering a little bit right now, but we're going to start the academy here in October, our regional academy. I think we're going to put 9 through, I believe, so that's going to help. We have been very lucky in that we've built a brand. I believe we've built a brand here that's very community focused, and we brought in a lot of folks, officers from the community, all right, that want to be. When I interviewed, I did 4 conditional offers, I think it was last week. Very diverse group that told me they were here because they wanted to impact their community, right? I feel good about that. I see the ranks of our diversity has gone. When I came here in 2018, just looking at the number of African American officers we had in our police department at the time was about 12%. Our city's about 50% African American here. So certainly I always want our department to be as reflective of the community as I can. I think that is always best practices in policing, that you need to be reflective of your city. So we went from 12% to we're about 24% right now. So we doubled that. And the only way we did that is by really creating a department that all people felt connected to and wanted to be a part of. So the first question that I ask any new applicant when they come to me, this is the final step to being a Danville police officer. I'm like, why do you want to come here? Why do you want to be a police officer specifically in Danville? And 99% of the time, it's because I want to impact my community. I want to impact the Danville community. Some I'll dig a little bit deeper into, and they feel I'm more connected now than ever because I see the work and I see the relationship building that goes on. So I think that general model, all right, will work in Roanoke just like it works in Danville, just like it will anywhere else, right? You build a reflective department that's connected to the community. Recruitment and retention's tough. 2020 was a hard year in law enforcement, hard year in Roanoke. Danville, you know, we had a lot of success during 2020. We had very constructive conversations during that time. And I think we even got better, right? When we looked at the incident that drove us to that, you know, we really built on that. And I would say our recruiting might even picked up a little bit after that. It's about that brand.
I was looking through the PowerPoint that you gave, I think, about crime stats over the last few years, and you had priority impact groups, and you had identified middle and high school kids that were involved in violence, discipline issues in school. Talk to me about that.
So, you know, we've done a couple programs that are specifically aimed at those groups because we want to connect with them before they are at risk of becoming either victims or offenders, right? So we do Reach One, where we have officers that go into those schools and have mentorship, you know, sessions with students. That's big for us. Things like Positively Pretty, where we mentor, you know, middle and high school aged young women. That's good for us to develop those relationships, and a number of other programs that specifically connect when those at-risk groups. Here in the city, there's things even outside the police department that I think have been phenomenal, where you have Project Imagine. You know, that is something I started in February of 2018. Robert David, I think, came in June or July of that year, and his model has really worked with a lot of things that we do concurrently. So he also goes into the schools with communities and schools and connects with that group, you know, that at-risk group that, like I said, can become either a victim or offender if not connected with early on.
Another one of those groups, the priority impact groups, is low income and the homeless population.
So, you know, we have developed a couple programs, and one of the best things that I think I did for our community, or we did for our community, is we started looking at how do we change the role of crime prevention, right? So crime prevention, as it used to be, was a sworn officer that would go to neighborhood watch groups, which is important, go into churches and talk about different things like lock your doors, this is what you can do to, you know, not be a victim, this is what you can do to kind of harden the target so your house is not you're not the victim of a burglary. So we kind of kept that, but we brought in folks that didn't just think like police officers, right? We created a position, a community relations liaison, which is a non-sworn professional staff member, and I wanted her just to build programs for those at-risk, underserved groups like, the unhoused, like those that suffer from addiction, like those that have been incarcerated, returning citizens that are back in the community that really have nobody to help them get a job, nobody to help them get an ID. So we created several programs. One's incarceration doesn't define us. One's homelessness doesn't define us, where we do these 8-week programs to connect with those groups and help them with services, help them become productive citizens in our community. Many people will say, well, that's not a police role. And you know what, maybe it's not, but building relationships is a police role. So I think it goes hand in hand. So anytime I look at a group that has a potential to either be a victim, specifically a victim, and sometimes those victims can also turn and become offenders, right? Because that lot in life, with addiction has left them out on the street where they feel like the only thing that they can do is break into somebody's car, a house, or what have you. That I want to build that relationship early on. I think that helps us better serve our community, helps them give back to their community in a productive way versus victimizing their community, right?
So it sounds like nothing is off the table when it comes to...
We try to do it all. Sometimes, and I worry about mission creep because we do so much, but when you look at the specific populations that we interact with the most, that is where we have to start, right? So, and we have to keep our fingers on that constantly. We really have to maintain those relationships, build effective programming that's working for them and for us.
How does Danville Police move forward with you gone?
Danville Police was going to be fine without me. She could make me cry. But no, so this has been, once again, the most professionally impactful job that I've had, and I've had a couple, because coming here and working with a community that didn't think that my philosophy was going to work for it, there were a lot of skeptics. And to be able to build a team, once again, they're all from here, to build a team of officers, police leaders, with help from our community partners, to turn it into what it is today has just been very satisfying. I leave Danville in capable hands. We've got some great leadership. And the reason we have great leadership, because at the end of the day, it's not about one man or one woman. It's about building that team through trust and empowerment. I can't do it all. I'm not getting any younger. All right, so I can only do good things through the work of others. And you do that by trusting and empowering. And whether it's my deputy chief, my 2 assistant chiefs, my captains, officers, detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, everybody has skin in the game here with making their community better. So that is always my model. My model is not some strong man or where I come into the department and I tell them exactly, hey, this is what we're going to do. Of course I have a vision. Of course I have a philosophy for how we do things. But we can only get better by uplifting each other and the community and trusting and empowering each other. That's very important to me. So because of that model, they're going to do well. They're going to be fine here. Crime, I'll forecast this. Crime will continue to decline here. Trust with the community will continue to increase here because the programs that we've built, the focus, the course that we've set, they will. I don't think the police department would want to go back to an old way of doing things. And I don't think the community and our elected officials and our city manager would allow that to happen, right? So that's an accountability piece too in policing. So it's not only the accountability within the organization, but your community, your elected officials, those folks, those decision makers, I think they've liked what we've done here together. So I think we're going to stay the course here in Danville.
What does the next chief need to be? Who needs to sit in that chair?
Oh, you want me to give you a name?
Yeah.
The best qualified person. I think that we have some great internal candidates here. I think that the next chief of police absolutely can be from the Danville Police Department. I am very proud of the team that we built here. They have supported me from day one, okay? And it would make me very proud, certainly, if one of them were able to step up and take over the organization.
What is your vision for Roanoke?
So my vision for Roanoke is for the Star City to be safer, for them to have a police department that is very focused on crime, that is very focused on community engagement. And I'm not going to say we're going to be another Danville, because Roanoke is not Danville. It has some similar problems, specifically with gun violence, that we've been successful at turning the corner. But you know, we have a large unhoused population there in Roanoke that needs us. We have people that struggle with addiction, and we have other crime matters that need our attention. My vision for Roanoke is for it to be a safe city that trusts its police department and views us as part of the community that is legitimate in its eyes. It's a diverse police department where you have everyone in the community that's represented in its ranks, and where people feel comfortable in not only being a part of our team, but calling us when something happens.
How do you build that trust?
So a lot of that was the way we built it here, right? So I hate to say, hey, this is the Danville motto will work in Roanoke, but there are some things that always work, right? Being approachable, being accessible, officers out of their cars, walking in neighborhoods, officers connecting with people, me being approachable and accessible, being in meetings, building relationships with people, building a brand so Roanoke, so that police department is looked at as a team that we want to be a part of. I want officers that are from the community, that look like the community, that want to work with me to make things better. Trusting and empowering leaders there, all right, our sergeants, our lieutenants, our captains, the deputy chiefs there. It's their game. This is a team sport. Everything in the department is a team sport. All right, when I go in, I'm going to trust them, and I'm going to empower them to go out and make good decisions that will maximize public safety benefit in all neighborhoods in Roanoke. But also, while I'm doing that, we're going to hold each other accountable. All right, so I'm accountable to the police department, the community, the city manager, and so are they. They're accountable to me as well as the community. That's the only way it works. Trust and empowerment, but you have to have that accountability component in there. We're going to be very focused on crime, on where crime is happening, and we're going to be hyper-focused on violent offenders. And we're going to work with all of our partners, whether it's local, whether it's federal, Virginia State Police, FBI, DEA, ATF, our local Commonwealth's attorney, our federal prosecutors, and we are going to be relentless when it comes to crime, especially violent crime. You're not going to be shooting in the community. You're not going to be harming people in the community and not be held accountable. So that accountability is across the board, within the department, within the community. That is absolutely my vision early on for how I see things going in Roanoke.
Are you familiar with the statistics that we have right now for just this year?
Well, you've already had more homicides this year than last year.
And for the last 5 years.
Which is not a joking matter. You know, I come from a city, Richmond. I think the year that I started in Richmond, probably had about 140 homicides of a city at the time of about 200,000 people. So I've been dealing and focusing on urban crime, especially gun violence, most of my career. And we saw that focused policing there, all right, as I was moving up through the ranks, focused policing and community engagement to build trust, and working with partners that are hyper-focused on crime could work. All right, you saw crime drop in Richmond, like a lot of cities, all right, during the 90s and 2000s. I think in 2008 they had about 32 homicides. So it's drastically reduced over those original numbers that I told you about when we first came in the 90s. And I certainly was only one small piece of that, but I saw how everybody working together could play a role in that. My vision for Roanoke is very similar to that. My vision for Roanoke is what we saw here in Danville. Working together, high rates of crime can be reduced. Accountability, trust, empowerment, partners working together, hyper-focused on where crime is happening, hyper-focused on those violent offenders, holding them accountable, will work. So we're having a bad year in Roanoke. It's a bad year, right? Did you say it was the highest homicide rate ever?
I don't know about ever, but definitely in the last 5 years. It may be ever, yeah.
I think it is. We're going to bring those numbers down. And we're going to bring those numbers down because those victims are much more than a number. That's a loss of a life right there. So when I look at my role as police chief, and sometimes I talk too much probably about crime reduction, but I take it very seriously because every victim out there is a person. And you look at every homicide, every murder victim has a family, has a loss of life, there's a traumatic impact to that family and to that community. So I take that very serious. So as the new chief in Roanoke, Virginia, I will tell you that we will be hyper-focused on reducing those amounts, those numbers of homicide victims. All right, and we will do that there.
How are you going to get people to talk to you? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen the police department say, people have been shot, and those same people won't give us information. In 4 months, there have been at least 23 shooting incidents and 2 arrests. In 4 months.
So we saw a lot of that here too, right? So, you know, experience is something, and I look at the things that we've done here to build trust, build relationships, the effort that we used to put at on a shooting or a homicide scene when I first got here in 2018 to what we do now, or a non-fatal shooting in 2018 versus what we do now. With my team here, just like my team in Roanoke, all right, that is game day. All right, that's where resources come to bear. That's where I'm there. That's where senior staff members, detectives have everything they need. They're trusted, they're supported. The community has what they need. Might not happen overnight, Jenna, but it will happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen the transition. I've seen communities turn that corner. A lot of people have told me, they've said, you know, we're optimistic for what you can do in Roanoke, what your team can do in Roanoke, but do you really think it can work here? Roanoke's not a Danville. It's not. Danville's not a Richmond. Roanoke is not Richmond, but I've seen these things work before in other communities, and they will work in Roanoke. We have great police officers. We have great people in Roanoke that expect the best from their police department through trust and empowerment, building relationships, and a relentless focus and follow-up on those shootings and on violent crime. We will turn the corner.
You've been a finalist for other chief jobs.
Yeah.
Why Roanoke?
So, you know, I have been a finalist for some other jobs, and I told early on when I got here, I even told the city manager and told some other community members that I thought I was going to be here for about 5 years, right? Just the way my mind works, and coming from a bigger city, I had, especially once I really started seeing how we were changing our environment here. I was very excited about that. So I kind of wanted to do that on a larger scale, which is what really got me out there interested, and I got some calls from some other agencies. Why Roanoke? I think Roanoke is a community that is just phenomenal, right? You've got people that want to come together, that want to work with the police to reduce crime. The fact that you already have some collaborative models in place there, like the Gun Violence Prevention Commission, groups like Fed Up that are tired, that are literally fed up about gun violence in the community, that excites me. I like it when communities come together to look at problems. So Roanoke, reading about that, talking to people, getting some calls, you know, when Chief Roman was stepping down, about some folks that thought I would be a good fit, quickly made me start to look at that opportunity, right? I said, would this be a place where they would accept me, where I would be a fit, where I could work with that department in the community to make things better? And I believe it is. So that's why Roanoke. I think I'm a fit there. I hope they like me. I hope they like the things that we build together to reduce crime. I think we'll move the needle. I have been a finalist for other places, but Roanoke has always spoken to me. You know, I was born there, so I'm going to claim native status. All right, I was born there. My dad was going to Virginia Tech. My mom worked in a downtown bank up until I was about a year old. Then we moved and never came back. So hearing the stories about Roanoke as I was growing up, a Star City, you know, things that they would do as you know, young people just starting their career, just starting their family, it was always a part of the conversation. So kind of going back to that, I mean, that's important to me too. You know, being able to go back to kind of where I started. I'm not getting any younger, all right, but I do feel I have enough passion and enthusiasm to really work with the community and do it again. I think I can do it again. I know I can do it again.
What kind of challenges are you going to face in Roanoke?
Some of the same challenges that I faced here, right? You're going to have skeptics. you're going to have people both inside the department and community members that are going to be like, is this going to work? Is this guy really, is he really going to walk the walk, or is he just talking the talk? I don't talk the talk, all right? I believe in doing things of depth, both within the department, within the community, that are going to impact us for the better. All right, that's what I've done here. So I've done other places. I believe that. I know that is what works. So winning some of those skeptics over. All right, so that's always the hardest, but everybody wants to be a part of a winning team. All right, everybody wants to jump on when things start moving, and we're going to get things moving, and we're going to start seeing some very positive results, hopefully early on. I think that already the interim chief, Jerry Stokes, has done some things that have moved the needle there. I love the fact that you've got sworn officers out on reset walks now after a critical incident, after a homicide. I love that. I love the fact that Chief Stokes is back in there talking to the Gun Violence Prevention Commission, building that relationship, all right, keeping that relationship strong. They're back in the community more than they've ever been. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to double down on that when I get there.
Okay, technology. You have tons of technology here in Danville. Are you going to try to bring that to Roanoke?
Absolutely. You know, it's something we're getting ready to go live here with NIBIN. I was actually in Virginia Chiefs a couple days ago, and we had a presentation from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science, and they were talking about NIBIN sites. And you know, recently Salem, Virginia State Police Office in Salem has gotten a NIBIN site. Well, Danville's is getting ready to go live. We used state funding, grant funding for that. I'd love to continue to expand technology in Roanoke. I'm a huge believer in obviously body-worn cameras, in-car camera technology, video technology out in the community, things like NIBIN, ballistics IQ, ballistics imaging so we can process shell casings at the scene early on, real-time crime centers. You know, we framed one out here in Danville and using state funding to actually build that real-time crime center. I would love to do that in Roanoke as well. There's a lot of funding available for that, state and federal levels, and there's a lot of interest in Roanoke. All right, a lot of people want the Star City to succeed. Time and time again, I've been approached by whether it's the U.S. Attorney for the Western District, the Office of the Attorney General, other folks in the Office of Public Safety for the state of Virginia that are already asking me, what can we do to make Roanoke better? What can we help you with in Roanoke to get things moving in the right direction? And you know, part of that is technology. So we'll see the things that we've done here in Danville, technology-wise, we'll work in Roanoke. So we'll expand that.
Okay. What's been the reaction from people?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Here or there?
Both.
So, here, it's been mixed. There are some people that I think are excited to see me maybe go to another community to see if we can make a positive impact there together. I think they're like, hey, so he's done some things, his team has done some great things in Danville, can he do the same thing in Roanoke, right? So I think there's some excitement there. But there's also some anxiety, truthfully. I think there's some anger. I think people are looking at me as kind of bailing out on Danville, which is a little hurtful. I feel that we have done some things here that just have been phenomenal. There's other questions I've said, we've reduced crime here, we've built relationships where they were broken and they never thought that a community policing model could work here. So I feel like we've had a level of success. So I just want the community to understand that that wasn't just one person doing that. That was a team, and that team remains and will continue to move forward and be stronger than ever. So it's kind of been hard for me to process that a little bit, Jenna. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, I certainly don't want a ticker tape parade. I know change is hard, but I think for me, you know, I am ready for the next challenge. I want to go to Roanoke and really just make that the best community that it can be, really reduce crime and build healthy relationships there. Because part of it is things are so good here. You know, we've built a team and we've built relationships here that are going to continue to sustain the community. So I wish people would understand that, right? So a lot of times people Well, we'll hit me with different things, right? Why are you leaving us? Why are you jumping ship? And it's not about that. It's about the challenge. It's about making another community better when I know that what we have here is strong. This foundation is so strong, and feeling good about that.
What's the reaction in Roanoke been?
So I feel that the reaction in Roanoke has been very positive. And what I definitely want to message is it's never, once again, just like Danville wasn't about one person, Roanoke is not about one person. As the chief, I will be the coach, I will be the leader, I will be that force in the community that brings people together. All right, I will work with partners, I will trust and empower, and we're going to have positive impact on the community. But it's not just about me, right? It's about all of us coming together. And in Roanoke, I think you have a vibrant community, you have elected officials, you have a city manager, you have a police department that wants things to get better. And I'm excited about that. So when I did my meet and greet a couple weeks ago, you know, the sense of community I felt, the questions, the very thoughtful questions that people asked me about who I was, what I would bring to Roanoke, I was very impressed. I was impressed with them. I was impressed with the things that they wanted to know about me. I was impressed with the things about strategy that they asked me. I was impressed by the questions about how we were going to create a more diverse police department. So I left walking away feeling very much that I was making a good decision. And I was still undecided at that point, but I was like, you know, this is a place that I could call home. These are people that I could work with to make the community better, and that was important. I needed to feel like they would accept me. And I very much walked away that evening feeling like I would be accepted. And I've been back since, and I've ridden with officers and been in the community and talked to officers. That was also something else that I needed to feel before I signed on the dotted line. I needed to get a feel for the police officers there to see if they would accept me, to see if they understood my philosophy, and to really get a gauge for how they were policing their community. And I was impressed. I overwhelmingly, Roanoke police officers love their community. They're proud of their community. They understand that there are some challenges, but they are ready to embrace those challenges. So once again, I was excited and continue and remain to be excited today.
What concerns do you have walking in?
Some of the same things that I faced here, right? There's always going to be some organizational challenges there, just because I am going to call on them to do some things different. I am going to ask them to be more in the community. I am going to ask them to be more focused, and I'm going to ask them to be more accountable. And all of those things sometimes are hard. It involves change. And any organization, especially any police department, change comes hard. But I'm relentless. I will never give up on how, if I believe and that this is a course of action that's going to make our department and our community better, then that's the course we're going to take. And it's about trusting and empowering and creating a team that kind of shares that vision, right, and moving us forward. And when you do that, like I've seen in other places, especially here in Danville, usually people will buy in. Usually people will get on board. You know, they want to be a part of that positive change, that impact in the community. So I would like to think that we will wear that resistance down. With the community, I will be there for them through constructive conversations, through getting to know me, letting them see what's in my heart and what's in my mind. I think that's how I overcome some of those barriers. As an outsider coming in, heard that a lot here, right? You're not from here. What makes you able to connect with our community and tell us what we need? Well, the commonality, there's many commonalities there, right? Everybody wants a safer community. All right, everybody wants crime to go down. Everybody wants an engaged police department that is part of that community and is with them in facing those everyday challenges, and that's what we're going to build there.
The meetings that you have, team meetings with your police department, team meetings that you have with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, how big of an impact are those meetings where everyone's talking?
So I think that's huge. And you know, you really just laid out so many of the different partners that have to be at the table. And you know, internally, let's start with the internal. As chief, you know, if you build a meeting, kind of everybody has to come, right? So if you say, hey, I want a meeting with all the lieutenants and captains, deputy chiefs, sergeants, they're going to be there because you're the chief. You know, but I believe in bringing everybody to the table and breaking down barriers, breaking down silos within the organization, which is something I don't talk a lot about, but that was a big part of our success here in Danville. Everybody at the table, looking at crime holistically, looking at how we're going to build trust in the community holistically, and being a part of that conversation. Not just community engagement working on something, not just the narcotics unit, not just patrol doing their own thing, bringing everybody together. Communication is key, certainly within the organization. I hate to have meetings just to have meetings. I don't do that. I do meet with my senior staff every morning here in Danville so we can make sure that we're talking and jiving and focused on the things that matter. I will do the same thing in Roanoke. I will meet with supervisors on a very regular basis there to talk about the needs of the department, the community, and where crime is happening. Our iStar team in Roanoke puts out fabulous data, but that data does no one any good if that's not being operationalized by the supervisors and the officers, and if we're not focused on where that crime is occurring and on identifying those violent offenders who are committing, especially the violent acts. So we've got the engine there. I just want to make sure that the communication piece is happening. All right, so I see that being a primary responsibility walking in the door there, making sure we're communicating. With the external, communication is equally important. Now, my role as chief of police is a little bit different. You know, I certainly cannot make, you know, the sack from the FBI or the ATF or the DEA or the U.S. Attorney or the Commonwealth's Attorney come see me. Many times I'll have to go to them, but we will communicate. And I would love to create a regular forum there where we're all in the room together, everybody with some skin in the game on making Roanoke better. That's a big part of it, breaking down those barriers, communicating. And I've already done some probing out there, already talking to some folks, and I think they're very open to that. I think they're just looking at us to build a collaborative model where we can move things forward. So I feel very enthused that that can happen.
It's no secret that there are specific pockets where gun violence and crime happens. Are those going to be your go-to first days on the job?
Well, I am going to get out there and, you know, I want to walk in the community. I want to talk to people that have been victimized in the community. In conjunction with that, we're going to make sure we have officers focused on that community. If that's where the crime is happening, if that's where people are being victimized, then that's where the cops need to be. You know, but we also have to make sure that we're doing that in a way that we're not over-policing the community, that we're not causing harm while others are causing harm there. So we have to be strategic about how we go about that. And that's always something that I look back about how we would respond to violent incidents early in my career versus how I believe it needs to be done now. And there are many constants, right? So you have to be there. You have to show up. But you have to be very focused and you have to be very deliberate. You can't just blanket neighborhoods with police officers and expect positive results, okay? Maybe you stop some incidents from occurring, but sometimes the broken relationships that can occur when you're over-policing, if you're just pulling everybody over for any tiny traffic infraction, there's a lot of negative results that can happen. So we will be delivered in Roanoke. And that's where that trust and empowerment comes from, right? I need to trust and empower my supervisors, my officers, my detectives to work with me to make sure our response is both effective and measured. That's very important to me.